Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Before we get started, I'm David Fink. I'm the CEO of Jewish Family and Career Services. If you don't mind, I'd like to see a show of hands of folks who have been here before, been to JFCS. Half, wonderful. So, well, the half of you that are here, welcome back. The half of you that have never been here, you're still welcome. I also want to welcome folks on Facebook Live over here. Hopefully you'll be able to join us next time. Tonight's community chat is the first in a series that we intend to have at JFCS on a quarterly basis to highlight programming at JFCS, but also highlight the partnership that we have with other nonprofits. One of my mantras here at the agency and across many agencies is that nobody can do it alone. We are better if we do it together. So you're going to hear tonight some exciting vision from different nonprofits that work with food insecurity and try to help support our community so that we can get to a point where people are not hungry. Because, as I said recently, how can you think about the future? How, if you're a kid at these days, and you're supposed to be getting ready for school and you're hungry, how do you go to sleep? Or if you get food in the backpack and school is closed for X number of days and your family has a difficult time bringing you to the school to get the food, and maybe the social worker from school and the frisky from school can't come to your house, where do you get your food? And these are really important things that we need to be thinking about and talking about for our community so that we can build a better and stronger and healthier community. So I'm very excited about tonight. But I do want to take a minute and talk to you a little bit about JFCS, because that's my job, is out of JFCS, I guess. At least that's what they tell me. So we work with a variety of youth and adults across the age spectrum and across the community. Not many know this, but 25% of the individuals we serve are Jewish, 25% identify as persons of color, and about 25% identify as that sort of Hispanic. We have, obviously, our location here, but we also have some offices, some sites that we use for office space in West Louisville as well, in 900 Broadway, and some other locations soon to come. We have clinical services, career services, older adult services, and of course, what we're going to talk about today is family stability and the immediate needs of families. And to kick off the conversation and turn it over to our moderator, one of the things that I want to throw a few statistics at you all, and I'm going to surprise the moderator, who's my board chair, so I'd like to surprise him. That makes me feel like I have a little power as well. And so a couple of statistics to throw at you. That 20% of people did not have access to healthy food during the pandemic. And in fact, I just heard a report recently that prior to the pandemic, under federal guidelines, 11% of the country met the federal guidelines for food insecurity. Since whatever phase we're in now, whether it's after the pandemic or post-pandemic or however you want to describe it, it's up to 15%. And that is reflected, as I'm sure Sandee will mention, in our food pantry services as well. 67% of JCPS students are on free reduced lunches. 1 in 6 children face hunger, and about 17% of adults ages 50 to 59 are food insecure. And Kentucky actually has one of the worst rates of that, which is a point that our folks from KIPTA have also reminded us of. So our role as a nonprofit is to both serve problems, because we have to be able to serve the immediate need, and so that's what food pantries do. It's also to think about solving problems, and we were just having this conversation. So one question that I hope will be addressed at some point tonight is something that I recently heard about, which is that there are some states in the U.S. that have been working with Medicaid and with CMS, where the states are able to purchase food and purchase nutritional training for families that are under Medicaid. And they use Medicaid funds to provide those services. So again, we need to be remembering about how we both serve and solve problems. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Mike Fine, and let him take it from here.
thanks everyone for coming out. I get the privilege of introducing our 4 panelists this evening for our very first community chat. I'm so glad to welcome you here. Start in order of their appearance from right to left, although if we were, there's a Jewish joke in there somewhere. Sandee Golden she joined JFCS as our Food Pantry Coordinator just before the pandemic, or during the pandemic, just before the pandemic. And so she's seen the need in the community spike. She graduated from Michigan State University with a bachelor's in social work.
I didn't know that. So smart.
Yep. Spartans. There's a lot of Spartan support around here. She worked with the Jewish Family Service Agency in Cincinnati for several years. And the fun fact about Sandee is that she's lived in 13 cities and moved 36 times. But I guess the last move was the one that brought you to us.
That's right.
So we're thankful for that. And as we all know, JFCS's Sunny and Janet Meyer Food Pantry wouldn't be the same without Sandee's leadership, whether that's stocking shelves or delivering food to clients. She believes strongly in equity, and when it comes to food, there's warmth that's evident in the touch that she does. So thank you for joining us tonight, Sandee. Vincent James serves as the President and CEO of Dairy Care. Is in a show of hands, anyone heard of Dairy Care? Unanimous. Okay. We all know about that one. In that role, Vincent has been building his team, and there are a number of his team members here tonight. We're thankful for their attendance and participation. He is looking at the root causes of food insecurity and championing the role that equitable food and nutrition can play in developing a healthier, stronger, more successful community. So thank you. Before joining Dairy Care, Vincent was with the city, overseeing he served as the chief of community building and oversaw a number of their efforts there, including the Office for Safe and Healthy Neighborhoods. And he's also a pastor at the Elam Baptist Church. So many accomplishments, results-driven and oriented social entrepreneurial approach to solving problems. So thank you for taking on this big problem that we all have in our community and need addressed. Stachelle Bussey joins us this evening. Stachelle is from Louisville's West End community. She's a social justice theologian. That's a lot to unpack in that. I don't know if we're going to have enough time, but she connects community issues to church while creating a biblical foundation rooted in justice work and reconciliation. She's the executive director and founder of the Hope Us. I should have figured out that it's pronounced us because of the name, the Hope Us. And that's an organization that operates along 5 initiatives with the goal of addressing food insecurity, violence prevention, health and wellness, emergency services, and community engagement. We were talking just before the panel. She had the opportunity to go study abroad in Geneva and was denied that opportunity by the pandemic. So we're going to brainstorm ways to get her there at some point. She has, since then, taken on a PhD program at Bellarmine University. So she's pursuing a degree there in education and social change. So thank you for joining us this evening, Stachelle. And last but certainly not least, we have Travis Brown. Travis Brown is an assistant director with New Roots, a nonprofit organization in our community. He believes that access to food is a human right and works to accomplish that every day. Believes that everyone should be able to eat healthy and is working to end food insecurity. Travis is retired from the Army and is here in his hometown of Louisville. So thank you for your service, Travis. We appreciate that. And now we're going to launch into some of the questions. So I've got some questions here that we need to get to first, but I promise that we'll open up for audience questions and you'll all have a chance. We only have one microphone. So I will pass this to each of you. As I try and read the question, I'll try and be loud. But let's start with Sandee. And so I think you might know what's coming. But the question here is, what sets the JFCS Food Pantry apart from other food pantries in our region?
I'm going to start by saying thank you to everyone for coming. We have several things that can you hear me? We have several things that make us unique. One, we are a partner with Dairy Care, which is unique of 280 other pantries in the area, but it's a wonderful opportunity and a way for us to get our food to give out to our clients. It's going from the food bank to the food pantry. We have three ways that we serve our clients, and David gave you a background of who our clients at the pantry are. We have our in-person pantry, which you hopefully saw when you came in. We are open twice a week on Monday evenings and Friday mornings for open pantry. This open pantry is open to our clients, the Jewish community, anyone in the 4 zip codes that we serve. And they do not need an appointment. They come in, they shop one-on-one with a volunteer or a staff person. And we have it set up, hopefully you will look at it. It looks like a grocery store. We treat our clients with respect and dignity in every way that we serve them, and especially in the food pantry. We do not want anyone to feel like they are taking anything that they shouldn't take. And the pantry is there for people to experience and to take the food that they need. The second thing that we do is we also deliver to about 30 homebound household clients that we deliver on Wednesdays. And so our in-person pantry is a choice pantry. They come in, they shop, they see what they need, and they take it and they go home. And that's the respect that we want them to have to take what they need. Our delivery people, which is unusual, you can see our bags here. We have pre-bagged sets of food, which is a little bit of everything from our pantry. And for people with special dietary needs, not just in delivery, but in the pantry itself, we try to have for kosher, halal, sugar-free, and gluten-free, which are hard to come by. But we also give our delivery clients that same opportunity by giving them a grocery shopping list to let us know, or their case manager know what their special dietary needs are. Dietary needs are, and what they like and what they don't like. So we have volunteers on Wednesdays come and pick up bags and take them out to our delivery clients. The third thing we have is, thanks to a grant from Dairy Care, we just opened a satellite across the street. So across the street is Shalom Tower, and it is a independent living apartment building. And you think, well, it's right across the street, why can't they just come over here? There's a transportation barrier and a movement barrier, and this way clients can get in the elevator, come downstairs. It's for the residents only, and we take the food from here, take it over there, so they have the same choices, also a choice pantry, and they shop, and we're open there on Wednesdays. All of our clients, when they shop the pantry, can come twice a month. And you'll see over in the corner there is a sample of food for a family of 3 for one shop, and they can come twice a month to shop. And we do it all on family size and need. Only one. So I look down so much. I think that the best thing about us is that we look at ways to reach our clients, like the satellite, like delivery. We make sure that our clients have the dignity and respect that they deserve and the food that they need.
You don't mind passing the microphone? And I'll just be loud. Vincent, what is Dare to Care's model of fighting food insecurity? And can you tell us how you view collaboration as a tool in that fight?
Yes, I'll be glad to. Again, good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be able to share with you all tonight. Thank you, Mike, for facilitating this conversation tonight. And thank you, David, for just your insight in all the things you're doing here at JFCS. And so one of the things, when I think about Dare to Care and the focus what we have and what we do, our mission is to lead the community in feeding the hungry and conquering this cycle of need. And the ways that we do that, if you were to think about, if you don't know much about a food bank, if you were to think of ever been in Costco, if you walk in Costco, you see all these towering shelves of food. That's what our food bank looks like in terms of our warehouse. We have a warehouse on Fern Valley Road, about 55,000 square feet warehouse that we service 13 communities, counties, and 5 in southern Indiana, 8 in Kentucky. Jefferson County being 65% of our service district. So we get the food in through donations, through retailers, through federal government programs and initiatives, and then we disperse that food through partners throughout all of these counties. And 3 of the partners here tonight with me are sitting right here at this table. And so that's awesome when we think about the reach and the impact that we have. You can imagine an army of 300 people advocating for food insecurity. In other words, how do we eradicate food insecurity? So the way that we work with our partners in distributing the food, our partners open up various times. And if you were to ask them here at this table, what time do you open? And Sandee's giving you some indication of that. If you've been to one food pantry, we've been to one food pantry. They're all different. One of the things that we're looking at in terms of how we're really addressing food insecurity in our community is we're looking at ways in which we can provide equitable access to food. Because you can live in a zip code and you may not have access the same as the zip code right next to you. If you were to think about what's really happened just here recently since Friday, the windstorm, we have partners all over Jefferson County, but yet in the most underserved area, we have the least amount of partners with the least amount of hours being open. What we're looking to do is to make sure that every neighbor in our community that is in need, that they have access to an opportunity to gain, to healthy food at the time that they need it. That it shouldn't be that it's closed, that they don't have access. That's the way we plan to serve. I learned something tonight from Dave. He shared with me, and I said, I'm going to take this, and the first time I say it, I'm going to give you credit. The second time I say this, I'm going to say, well, someone said, and then the third time I say it, it's mine. So to serve and solve. And so that's really what we're wanting to do. When you look at our mission, we are here to serve the community in terms of providing food, but also we want to solve this whole issue, which is a solvable problem. We know through data that $40 million can solve the problem of food insecurity in Jefferson County, according to Feeding America. And so it is a solvable problem. We had an opportunity, and I'm so glad that Deputy Mayor George is here tonight. We had an opportunity when we had our emergency rescue funding, and we had an opportunity to be able to make some transformational changes. With $40 million, we could have solved the problem here in this local community. I believe that it's still an opportunity for us to be able to do that. And that's going to take the work that we need to really focus our energy and resources and talking about partnership. I mean, it's demonstrated here at this table with New Roots, who comes, we have a fresh stock from New Roots at our 28th and Virginia site. We work with the Hope Bus in order to be able, today was my first day of having the opportunity to get on the Hope Bus. It is an amazing bus. I wish you could have drove it here tonight so everybody could see it. The only way, you gotta see this Hope Bus. It is amazing. It's a grocery store on a bus. And so I got a chance to get on there tonight when they were coming to pick up food that we were serving and delivering to the community because we know the need that is taking place as a result of the windstorm. This the greatest power outage that we've seen over the past 20 years. And people they don't know what they're going to do when it comes to getting their next meal. It should never be a problem, but it is. And so we're looking through partnerships and collaboration, working together to solve this problem because no one entity can solve this problem of food insecurity. It takes a partnership, it takes a community. And one of the things that I'm working on and wanting to work with our partners is how do we work together to develop a community metric that we can evaluate how we're coming out of lifting people out of poverty. So through a collective impact, working with several partners, that we're working together and we have such a fine-tuned system that we can actually identify as we make these kinds of decisions in community, we can move the needle on addressing poverty in our community. And it takes more than even what's sitting here at the table. You have to deal with the root causes when you talk about housing, you talk about education, employment, a living wage. I'll say that again, a living wage. These are things that we have to advocate for from looking at it from a social ecological framework where we start with the interpersonal all the way out to dealing with policy. Because until we address policy, we're not going to move the needle. We live in the wealthiest country in the world, and yet we have people who go hungry every day. But yet there's plenty of food for all of us. So what is the gap? Why is that not possible how is it still possible for somebody to be going hungry? It is the structures that we've seen that have impacted Black and brown communities and poor communities all across this country. That was what the 2020 protest was all about how do we get equal access? What about social justice? How do we make sure that we have all of these things in place? When we begin to address those things, we will eradicate violence, we eradicate homelessness, we will eradicate food insecurity. And that's what we're about. I believe we're going to do it. I'm bound and determined. I'm excited every day I wake up that I get to work with the most incredible team in the world to be able to address this problem of solving for our neighbors that they no longer have to wake up in the morning and wonder where they're going to get their next meal.
Thank you. Yes, we're going to explore more of that. Stachelle, what is the larger impact of food insecurity beyond hunger, and how does the Hope Bus address those ripples caused by food insecurity?
Well, first, hi everybody. Glad to see you. Y'all kind of quiet for a Tuesday afternoon. I think y'all gonna be a little more interactive here. When you think about it, I mean, some of the stuff that we already know, right? When you're hungry, can you focus on education? Can you read? Do you want to do it? Like if your stomach's growling, can you produce? What can you do? In fact, some of our stomachs are probably growling right now because you probably came here straight from work.
There are some snacks in
right. And so it's that stuff, but I think at the core of it, what Pastor James talked about, at the core of it, when you look at some of the issues that we have right now in our city, outside of homelessness, I think everybody's talking about violence. Well, guess what's happening? Violence is an issue because poverty is an issue, right? You have some council people who would like to say, well, the reason people are poor is because of violence, the other way around, right? And so some of these root causes in our neighborhood, this intentional stuff, right, with the West End drive-through there, right, and the babies and Southern talked about it. It's not food desert, it's a food apartheid. It was intentionally done, right, to keep a group of people, right, begging and poor. Right, there are no grocery stores, but more than that, right? What happened to our mom and pop shops? White people used to live in Sandee, right? Y'all wasn't White people weren't down there with no food access, right? So something happened, right? You literally starve a community. So then some of this kind of stuff, some of those unintentional consequences, what becomes violence? School suspensions. Now, people are breaking their cars. Why is all of this happening? Why are teenagers terrorizing our city, right? Because when they leave from Hurstbourne and breaking into your cars, they go back to the West End, or they go back to other places and literally starve the resources they are just trying to make it, right? Some people have issues, I understand that. But the core of that is, why do they steal cars? Why do they get involved in gangs? Why do they do that? Because at the basic level, they don't have basic needs, right? And so you think about some of the things, and when I grew up, we had commodity lines and government cheese and all those kind of things that we make fun of, but we had access to those things, right? We just closed down how many Walgreens that affected a community of people, right? During the 2020 protests. Somebody made a phone call, shut down the Kroger. Well, you shut down the only Kroger that's accessible to most people, and then what happened? People lost access to medicine. And then they said, well, they broke in it. Well, you closed it, right? And so some of this is just, that's the larger impact. We are seeing the larger impact right now in food insecurity. We got a city that we have absolutely no control over, right? Some of y'all scared to go to sleep at night. You got to watch, when you get in your cars, because you don't know who's going to steal it. If you drive a Kia, God bless your soul. But these are some of the things, though, that are happening right now in our city, right? And more than that, our city is so segregated, which makes our resources segregated, right? You can live on Hurstbourne and not give a crap about what's happening in Park Hill, right? And so those are some of the things that we're dealing with, right? That's the root cause of it. You have an entire community, right? And when you think about the West of Louisville, a lot of people like to group it, the West of Louisville. We're talking about 70,000 people, right? And if 70,000 people are living, and if 80% of that 70,000 is living below or at poverty level, then what? And so that's some of the issues. We have nothing in our community, right? So yeah, that's what I think happens there. And in the hierarchy, consistently over and over and over, right? Generational poverty. People cannot stop recycling those systems. They cannot get out of it. They consistently just are in it over and over and over and over. And I think even deeper part of that is, and I love food pantries, right? And I think food pantries are good, and I love commodity lines, and I love food stamps. But you're talking about people who, some of them people probably don't even care if the LGN is off, because some of them don't even have lights anyway. Right? So that's what we find when we go to the community, which, the second question is, how do we address it? We just go knock on people's doors. We find out exactly what the issue is. And because I grew up in the West End, because I have such a relationship, somebody say, can you go check on my grandma? Can you go do this? Can you go do that? Or I just be like, I ain't seen the lights on in their house anywhere. Let me see what's going on over there. But you have to have a presence in the community. You have to have a trust, which is why I think our work is so effective. Because they don't call me all hours of the night. They don't care what's happening. And so that's how we really try to get to the root of the problem. But the other thing is, whenever I get a chance, I just don't let people ignore it, right? And I respect Pastor James, and we've been knowing each other for a really long time. But when he was working as a chief officer community builder, he knows I'm coming knocking on the door. I need an answer. I don't take no for an answer. I need to know, how are we going to house people? How are we going to feed people? How are we going to deal with some of the issues that we are consistently dealing with over and over in our communities? And if you look at a lot of it, Coach George is here, a lot of this poverty, a lot of this stuff is happening in the South. Why? Because gentrification happens and we're dispersing the same poor people to different communities. And so we try to, just see how we can address it, but really it's from a communal standpoint. It is everybody's problem. I don't care if you live in 402, 401, I don't care if you live in Chevy, I don't care where you live. It is an issue that your brother who lives in 40211, or your sister, or that child who goes to the school, that they don't have food access, right? I could probably go on over and over. I could probably go on and on, because that's the issue. But it's not just about food, it's about healthcare. Those same kids who can't eat, then what happens? Blood pressure, diabetes, because they have convenience stores and they have liquor stores, right? Why didn't liquor stores shut down in the pandemic? Because for the West End neighborhood, that's really some of their only source of food. right? So we try to really look at the root causes, but I think what's so cool about us is that we don't think anybody is exempt. I go talk to the convenience store owner, I talk to the liquor store owner, I talk to the pastor, I talk to any and everybody I can to see how we can really build community around, how we can really build community and address some of these issues. And I don't really think it's a government issue. It is. The government created it, but I think it's up to the community to solve it, right? It is all of our problem. And that's what I get to do. I get to leave the West End sometimes and come out here and have real conversations about what the work that we do, but also how we need to expand that work. Recently, maybe the last 6 or 7 months, we were at a Presbyterian church down on 44th, but then we created another relationship right here at St. John's Lutheran Church. That's now in the satellite kitchen, right? And I say, you need to get your folks in here to cook in this kitchen because we need to take these meals down somewhere else. So that's kind of what we do. That's our way of addressing it. We make it everybody's problem. And Ja'Cory, I think, said one of the most impactful statements that we ever heard. Everybody in Louisville is responsible for everybody in Louisville. And I think because of what we're doing now, because we're seeing more of the Vincent James, because we're seeing, the Goodwill Camp, because we're seeing all these kinds of new things, that people won't be able to ignore the West End much longer. Right? But in doing that, we try to make sure that we are taking care of people. Right? People first. People first. Right? People first. And the people who are literally at the bottom of the problem deserve to have answers, deserve to have a seat at the table for how we solve the problem. Right? And that's why I get to have a seat at the table, because I was poor. Right? Sometimes I think I might still be poor. but because I was poor, I was hungry, I understood what it meant not to have lights. And so I address it not from just research or all that fancy stuff, I address it from experience. Right? And you might not have experience, but that's the way we have to start looking at things, right? So yeah, that's kind of how we address it. Hold our systems accountable, hold people accountable, create these pipelines where we can talk to people. Before Vincent James came, we had a really good relationship with Derek Care, helped them reimagine how we distribute food. And because of that, we probably the smallest partner, but we distribute a lot of food. And so yeah, that's kind of how we deal with it and solve it. So yeah, I think I'm done.
Thank you, Stachelle. And you started touching on some of the health impacts of access to food, diabetes, heart disease, other issues. And so for Travis, I want to ask you, how does access to food relate to health? And how is providing that access then a way to strengthen the health of the community?
Yes, of course. First and foremost, we believe food is medicine. If you have healthy food, you have access to the healthy food, so many other related health effects will go away and down. We've seen it firsthand. People have lost hundreds of pounds of weight just by switching their food. And the main issue we saw is they just do not have access to it. So that is what New Roots does. We provide fresh, local, organic produce to communities who do not have access to it. So we're primarily located in the West End, and we also have 7 different little pop-up markets that we go through. And we talked with the community, found out where they needed these markets the most, because transportation is a large issue. So that's why we move around so much, because you go to Parkland and into California neighborhood, those are just miles away, and people can't always get there. So we believe that they should have the access to it. And also in those communities, the people who run those markets are members of said communities. So they are giving us direct feedback on what they need. They're the face of the community, and they promote healthy eating for people who really need it. And then I have some notes here, so I might be looking down for a minute. And I mean, that's primarily what it is we're in those communities, and we also found out that senior high-rises are another big issue. We work with Friendship House on 4th Street, Beecher Terrace down on 9th, and we're trying to get some with Shalom Towers right over here at the JCC. We have found they've kind of been ignored and kind of left to wither away, unfortunately. They have accessibility issues, they have dietary restrictions, and so when some of our shareholders who are in our program brought this up to us, we started to take a look at it and realize that there's a whole demographic of people who don't have access and who need our help. So instead of giving them the 8 to 10 items that we usually have, they can't eat that much. So we talk with them, we see what items they're able to eat with the limited kitchen space they have, experience in cooking food, and also like dental, so hard to chew stuff we found out was not good for them. So we picked 2 or 3 items that were really beneficial to the community, and we have helped. I believe for Friendship House, we did about 2,500 pounds of produce last year, and that's all donated food. We raised the money for them, so we're not asking the seniors to try to contribute or take away from the little SNAP money that they get. So we have found out that them and the West End is very in need of us, and we want to provide the fresh produce for them.
Let's talk about location, because that came up in a number of our panelists' remarks. We have JFCS now expanding to the satellite location. We have a bus of food driving around the city, and we have new routes moving from market to market, across multiple different locations. The accessibility of food, and we use the term food deserts, that's come up a couple of times here. Is everyone comfortable with what food desert is? Mostly not initiating that. We'll ask the panelists to help us understand that term, understand the overlay of those deserts on areas of poverty, and then help us then pinpoint the where and how we provide access. So why don't we can just take 2 minutes and we'll go on the first one.
Yes, so accessibility, that is the big thing, and just, I'm sorry, I spaced on my question.
How do you figure out, it sounded like what you do is you reach out to the community members to help inform you on where you need to be.
Yes, and that is just where they are, where they live, and Stachelle touched on it perfectly, the lack of groceries, the lack of where they can get the fresh produce. So we look, there's only one grocery that I know on 28th, the Kroger, and that's it. So we really try to find areas that are far away. Old Louisville is surprisingly one that is very neglected. They have lost a lot, and we found that out with their Friendship House. They closed their grocery store, and it is very much a food desert there and food apartheid, because it's an effort. They have moved out of that location. They're purposely not providing food to an area that needs it.
Stachelle, it sounds like you kind of find out about people who need food word of mouth or just going and knocking on doors.
Yeah, but I've spent a lot. I spent a lot of time in community. I've done a lot of work around. My background is social work. No, don't say woo-woo. That's the worst job I ever had. Yeah, but I did. It's not okay. I'm sorry. It's all George though. Yeah, social workers are all that. The work is not all that. So I spent a lot of time in social work, and so I understood things very, very differently at a government level. And so when I have to go in people's houses or have to go and look at these situations, what I found out was that a lot of people call something like insane, or they call it, or they condemn it because they don't understand it. And so when you might go into somebody's house and they might have 2 bedrooms with 5 kids or 6 kids, or there might be 7 people in the house. And so you're looking at, first of all, how are we providing for everybody, right? If a kid misses school, if somebody doesn't have a car, it just goes all the way down. So then you start digging into that kind of stuff. You sit with people, and some people may never be able to afford a car. The cars are a privilege, right? But you talk with people and you see what is the actual need. I think maybe during the pandemic, and I wrote it down somewhere. I actually cried about it at night, but I don't anymore. We found seniors who were eating cat food because they didn't know how to use a computer, didn't have access to a computer, didn't know how to use a cell phone. And so whenever it's like, go online and apply for that, it's like, oh my gosh, what? How does that, somebody who still uses aluminum foil on an antenna to watch a TV, it's like, what does that even mean for them? And so you think about accessibility, but our goal at the whole bus has just been one thing the whole time. We know it's available, and I found out it was available, right, through various adventures I've been on. I found out it was available. What do I do to make it accessible? Right, there's a gap there. The gap is, it's here, but how does it get here? So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, right? We know there are resources. We know these things exist. I know Dare to Care is on Fern Valley Road. What do I need to do to get those 26,000 pounds of food to the people to the 26,000 houses who actually need it? Right, and so when you think about accessibility, and I love, again, I thought we were unique until Miss Sandee started talking. But that's what we did first. We would put people in our cars and take them to the grocery store. It started in Louisville, right? Because I remember when we moved from South Bacon, and they moved before, it was like, Louisville, because that's a cute name. But it was like clubs up there. My grandma lived up there, and when we were up there, we had a Winn-Dixie that we could walk around the corner to, right? Now, a lot of people are confused right now, but that's okay. But we got a Winn-Dixie that we walked to, and I'm like, when I went back to this community, I'm like, this is not the same community I lived in, right? This is like, what is the the Walgreens, all those places are closed, and then you go to a convenience store, and it's way more expensive, So then, so our goal really began to close the gap on availability and accessibility. We know there are housing resources available, but if I don't know how to get to them, then how does that serve me, right? And so that's what we do. Close the gap on availability. That's all of our jobs in here. A lot of you probably drove here, or lived here, or Uber here, because we fancy now. But how do we close this gap? We have to respond to the gap on availability and accessibility. And that's what I try to do every day to solve the problem, right? And it's huge, right? And we do it, I'm almost done, but we do it not in a sense, I used to try to be like, we need to try to impact the 7,000 people. It's like, well, no, I can't do that. But what I can do is deal with the people in the Sandee community, which is the second largest Western community. How do I impact 12,000? Right? How do I go to the schools? Right? We build relationships with schools, we build relationships with grannies and gangsters and all those different people who are important in the community to say, what do you need to build that trust? Right? And they hold us accountable. So yeah, that's every day. My life's work is how do I close the gap on availability and accessibility? I'm still trying to figure the answer.
We're working together.
Vincent, how is Dare to Care figuring out the where and what are the pockets in the 13 counties that you cover that are most in need? Because I bet some of the needs in the West End are very similar to some of the needs you see in the rural counties surrounding you.
Absolutely. We've almost been in the city in an hour, so I need you all to help in this in terms of participating. You two, Deputy Mayor George and David, if you could remain seated. But everybody else, I need you to get up and walk on over to this left side, or my right, be your left, my left. Well, you all stay seated. You all stay seated over here. I need everybody over here to walk over here. Yeah. So stretch, everybody needs to walk over here. And walking over here to my left, which would be your right. This is when we talk about, when you hear the term food deserts. And we looked at it and we learned, we was at the same meeting, some middle school kids, some high school kids were writing, this is not food deserts because food deserts grow organically. It's a food apartheid because it was intentionally done to create a community the way you see it. There are 2 Krogers in West Louisville, which is represented right here. The same size square miles that you would see in East Louisville looks like this. If I were to draw a map and you were to see it. And so when you see the disparities of trying to feed 66,000 people with just 2 people, with just 2 grocery stores, and nothing else. Now you can see in terms of what it means to have a food desert, that I can't drive down the street and get healthy food. I remember I worked as a chief of community building in Louisville Metro Government I was located on 5th and Jefferson. I could go out of my office, walk and go to whatever restaurants I wanted to go to eat lunch. When I came to Dare to Care at 28th and Virginia, I was sitting in my office and I was like, where am I gonna go eat? Wow, I don't have time. I don't have a place to eat. There was no place where I could get healthy food. And I said, this is what it feels like every day. And I grew up in West Louisville. But this is the reality that people face every day, that they don't have access to fresh and healthy food. And when you think about, when you look at this example here that you see, right, this is real lived experience of people's lives every day. And so what we're doing at Dare to Care is that we've just recently worked with the Greater Louisville Project to identify all of the food apartheid areas in our community. And so what is it that we can do to create greater access points for people to be able to have food? Thank you, y'all go back and sit down now. Thank you for your participation. But what we're doing in terms of taking the data and understanding where we currently have partners and where we don't have partners. One of the things that we do, we have a mobile pantry, much like, similar in terms of the idea, concept of the Hope Bus, except we set up these mobile pantries in communities and neighborhoods where we don't have partners, or there may be a partner, but they only open once a month. So we'll drive food to this location in the community and have people from that neighborhood to come in and drive through and get their food. And it's not just any kind of food. We don't accept honey buns and all the sugary stuff and things that you would think. We want people to have healthy food. So we don't have sodas. We don't sell sodas we don't provide sodas. We have healthy food because that's what people need if they want to increase it and have better health outcomes. And so one of the things that we will see in terms of us addressing it is what we're doing right now. We are so grateful. We just received a $1.8 million grant from the Humana Foundation to look at how do we create equitable access to food for our community. And so we're scratching the surface of this. The things that we're doing at Dare to Care are literally cutting edge. I mean, it's not being done across the country, and we're figuring this out. We're sort of building the plane as we fly it. And so when you think about the opportunities that we have, it is within partnership. But I want to circle back to one question that you asked earlier, Mike, about the long-term impact of food insecurity. 1969, a tragic incident happened in our community that started Dare to Care. Bobby Ellis died of malnutrition Thanksgiving Eve in 1969. And he had 4 siblings. They were all dispersed into different families or different areas. They went into the foster system. And when I came to Dare to Care and I learned about the story, I reached out to one of the family members that was still living, Nikki Ellis, and I reached out to her and said, hey, how you doing? Just checking in with her. And she said, I'm so grateful that you appreciate that you called, but I'm just thinking about you reaching out to me just to see how I'm doing. I think about what would have happened if my brother and my sisters, my siblings would have had someone just to check in on us. He was a JCPS student. And so no one checked in. He died. Faith leaders and community leaders came together and said that can't happen in our community ever again. That created Dare to Care. And then when I think fast forward where she is today, she says, my other siblings have mental challenges from stemming from starvation. That many of them 3 of them have been institutionalized. She herself has cognitive challenges because of food insecurity. This is a long-term impact and effect in our community, and it costs us millions upon millions of dollars to really begin to look at the impact of what is taking place. And so if you don't have the mindset of a good heart to address the problem, then I will talk to you about the economic impact that it's having on your wallet. So whatever way we can address this problem, whatever way I have to color it for you to see it and the impact, we need to recognize that this is a real problem for real people that experience it every day. And so we want to work together in community and partnership to eradicate hunger and food insecurity. We want to bring about opportunity where every human being, every neighbor has access to fresh and healthy food, which should be a human right. It's a human right to have access to food, which I believe when we talk about the other issues in terms of root causes, it's a human right to have health care. Our country, I could go on and on about these root causes in terms of what has been created, but we the people have an opportunity to make a difference. And we do it with our advocacy and we do it with our vote. And I'll stop there.
So Sandee, similar question for you. How is JFCS identifying where, and through programs like the delivery services and maybe our work that we do checking in on seniors, can you talk to us a little bit about what JFCS is doing to address accessibility?
So through our case managers, working with clients, they inform their clients that we have the pantry and the different ways that they can access food and that we can help them with food. So they come to the pantry, but as I said, these bags will all be gone tomorrow. They're going to be dispersed to the West End, Shively, and as we've already established, I'm not from here, so I'm not sure of all the areas that it's going to, but I know I have to look on the map for our volunteers and plan, map their things out. And they're going 18 miles away from this building to get food to our clients, and that's through referrals from our case managers. And I want to say the majority of them are in the West End, but that's something I'm going to work on and learn where our deliveries actually are. But we do serve 35 to 40 families with the delivery process and getting them healthy food. And we do not just the bags, but they'll get fresh produce and they'll get personal care, just like all of our in-person clients do.
One more question before we open it up to the audience, and this is one that I think might have been shared with you at the time, and that is, what do you and your organizations need to be more equipped to fight food insecurity? What do you need?
Food. Food is the one answer, a variety of food. We depend on Dare to Care. We depend on donations, both food donations and financial donations. We had a food drive in the fall, and this room had tables all along the perimeter, doubled food on every single table, and it was, we weighed it, and it was over 5,600 pounds of food. And people came in and said, oh my God, you're stacked for a long time. Food was gone by the end of December. And as an example of that, we weighed 5,600 plus pounds of food from that food drive. In December, we gave out 5,600 pounds of food in December. Now granted, that includes produce, and some of it were cabbages the size of my head, but it includes produce. But when you think about it, people are hungry year-round, not just Thanksgiving, not just the high holidays for the Jewish community. Pantries need donations, and I'm speaking for all of the partners. They need donations, either financially. Financially, your dollar with us can go farther than your dollar even going to the dollar store, because we have the luxury of Dare to Care, who will sell us food for below price of even what the dollar store is. So if you have $1 in your hand and want to go to the dollar store and get us a can of food, if you donate that $1, then we can get 2 cans of food. maybe 3 cans of food. So there's all kinds of ways that you can help, not just our pantry, but all pantries, by donating, and donating variety. People who are coming to pantries deserve variety. Not just mac and cheese, but rotini pasta, or, just not just grape jelly, but orange marmalade. So variety and food. That's
Vincent, what is Dairy Care need?
Everything. No, just, one of the things I would say, and thank you, Sandee, because she definitely hit right on the point in terms of, one of the ways in which we operate, we get donated food in terms from federal government. We get donated food from retailers like Kroger and Walmart and Publix who donate food, but we only get what they provide for us, so we don't get to choose a lot of times, like what specific kinds of food that we want. So we have a program that Sandee was referring to as a co-op program, where some of our partners actually purchase the food from us that we purchase. So Dairy Care actually purchases food, that healthy food that is not being donated, and then we provide access to our partners at a deep discounted rate that they in turn can provide for our neighbors in need. And so when we think about how we look at that and how we are helping folks to be able to really address food insecurity, it is a way in which we think about what I feel is that a movement is needed. And that's what I'm creating, is a movement across this country to address this issue of food insecurity. One of the first things I shared with my director of communications when we first hired, I said, listen, I said, at that time I just had left the administration, and Mayor Fisher was always on television, and he was always talking about some groundbreaking or something. I said, I want to be on the news more than he is on the news. And I want to be on the news more because I want to talk about food insecurity. And lo and behold, I have an incredible director of communications. She had me everywhere. I was talking to about everything about as it relates to food insecurity, what the real challenges are. And so what I really wanted to do, and what I need, is people. I need people who are bought into the idea that this is a solvable problem. I need people who buy into the idea that we can address this with this farm bill that's coming up, with the right kinds of initiatives in the farm bill that can help have access to healthy, fresh food. That I need people who believe and understand that SNAP benefits can be used as a gap to be able to help families to come out. The quickest way to come out of poverty is through those types of resources. And being able to see that and have that opportunity, I want to create a movement across our country that we no longer will have food insecurity in our communities, that we will no longer have any person living in our country, the wealthiest country in the world, that they won't have access to fresh and healthy food every day that they wake up. And that's what I need, is people. And then next, after people, I need the dollars. I need the resources, because it takes money to create a movement. And so one of the things what you think about from that, and another thing that Sandee had mentioned, what she talked about was a co-op program, but what we're able to do at Dare to Care, and we try to encourage people to, yes, the traditional food drives that you did was great, but it's so labor intensive. I mean, you could imagine taking just what you all did, 5,600 pounds of canned goods, and having to have labor to pick them up and then resort them and then disperse them back out. Where if you invested and donated $1 to Dare to Care, we can provide 6 meals for every $1 you make that you provide. And not only can we provide it, but it's healthy meals that we'll be able to provide for our neighbors. And so we encourage people to do fund drives. We had fund drives at my church. I pastor the Eagle Baptist Church. I've been there for 27 years. I was going to say, no, wait a minute, for 27 years. And I will still be there. Love what I do in terms of sharing the word. But most importantly, I think it's an opportunity where we've had Sunday school classes to participate and compete against each other. And we've had my wife's sorority. They competed in terms of being able to raise funds for Dare to Care. They did it as a competition. And so there's a lot of things. I had just recently, one of our neighbors came to me and said, my mother's getting ready to turn 90 years old. She's been a supporter of Dare to Care since we moved to Louisville, and she wants to do something. And we're thinking about having our guests come to bring a canned good. And I said, I got something even better. What we can do is set up a website for your mother for her 90th birthday, and all of the folks there can donate to Dare to Care, her organization of choice, and we will be able to take the $1 and provide 6 meals to our community. So there's all kinds of ways that you can get involved. And then thirdly, what I need are volunteers. Not only do we need the advocates, but the volunteers who are willing to come and help to serve while we also simultaneously are solving. Thank you, Dave.
Stachelle, Travis, maybe 1 or 2 minutes each on this question. What do you and your organizations need?
All right, I'm gonna try to do this right because it's a group of people here who's been working with me for a couple months now. I like to say some of the stuff that they said. First, we always need volunteers. One of the things I don't want people to get so hung up on is the actual Hope Bus. Last year, we created this one thing called the Hope Village. This is where we serve over 100 houseless people. 53 of them live with us 24/7. Have you ever tried to feed 53 hungry adults 24/7? So we have the Hope Village, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Look that up. But we really need volunteers. We need hands. Sometimes that offsets cost of labor. So we really need hands. Get involved, right? Come and experience something. It might not be where you live, but come and really be a part of the work so it can have meaning. The second thing is advocacy, right? Keep advocating for food, security and all those things. The other thing is we do this thing called Fill the Bus. We're pretty fortunate to have that big old bus. It costs about $4,500 to fill that entire bus. And gas is like $250. But it costs about $4,500 to fill that bus. When that bus is full, it serves about 75 families. And we're not talking about 1 or 2 canned goods. That means a family of 4 or a family of 10 can get on and get what they want. And so we try to, like that choice pantry thing. So we put all kinds of things on there. It's meat on there, a lot of what we get from Dare to Care, the other stuff that we have gotten through people like Kroger who allow us to pull up and just hand out, things so people can buy one more. And so if you have organization, anybody work anywhere like a bank or whatever, do those competitions. We want to fill that bus. If you want to write a check, that's fine. $4,500 one time, 75 families. But also you can just do a drive at your church, at your job, wherever you want to, and collect canned goods, collect all kind of items that really helps us. The last thing, of course, we really love our monthly donors. I like the money that we get from cool people around the city, but I really love when people donate $10 and people donate $25 just monthly, right? That's for some of y'all, that's like a McDonald's meal, or no, we out here, that's Jackers. So those are some of the things that really allows us to keep the bus rolling, right? We need you though. And so that's advocacy, do a fill the bus, become a monthly donor, and just come and volunteer. Y'all got that? Give me those 4 things back. I want to hear it again. So what's the first thing? Volunteer. Advocacy. How much it costs to fill that bus? What's the third thing? Become a monthly donor. Thank you so much.
Yes, they have all touched on what I believe all nonprofits need, including New Roots. We need volunteers. Our primary way we work is we get our food in bulk, so 40, 50-pound crates, and we have to break that down into 1 to 1.5 pound servings for each of our shareholders. So that is very time intensive, and volunteers make or break that, because paid is on myself and 2 others that work in the office full time. So without volunteers, it falls on all of us. The second is money, of course. That allows us to subsidize the food that we're giving the people and allow us to reach out to more people. And a big thing I believe is local community involvement, especially local government. Because in a perfect world, we shouldn't exist. No one should be struggling for these things. Nonprofits shouldn't need to be around. Everyone should have the access to food. They shouldn't be in a food apartheid, and their health should be able to be maintained. So I think pushing for that and having everyone on this, that we can all work together is great to build a foundation of nonprofits that can really tackle this, because a lot of times we're just trying to keep our heads above water with funding, time, everything like that. So to try to reach out and reach across the aisle to help another nonprofit is sometimes just not possible for us. So I believe that would be a big help, and this is a big help for that. We are getting a lot of, knowing a lot of faces and getting a lot of connections made. So thank you.
Courtney, are you gonna? Yeah, while Courtney's doing that, there's one mic, so I'll wander around. If anyone has any questions for our panelists, I think we've got time for one or two questions.
What are the prospects of the community co-op grocery on Jackson Street becoming a reality? I mean, we read a lot about it in the news, and, you know, money has been allocated, but will we ever see a shovel in the ground? I don't know, that might be. I think you do.
I thought you were like this.
We
Wow, way to put me on the spot. So I would say I am somewhat new to the community. The Louisville, help me out, grocery.
The Louisville.
What's there's two names. There's LAC, yes, and then Lace. My understanding is they have a funding gap. And as we've seen with all projects that were initially estimated, despite the fact that, I think the city has contributed approximately 25% to that project, in order for it to be completed as it's currently conceived, I want to say there's like a $2 million gap. And so, which I think they mostly attribute to inflation. So I'm hopeful that we will see that project. I know the mayor and I met with them this week. I guess that was Monday. It was like it's already been a week.
Is that the neighborhood association?
So it's Lay's. Well, actually, we met with the Louisville. Tell me their name.
LCG.
Thank you.
And one of the things that you can do to help with that project cost.
Perfect. But I think we need to be realistic, which is they have a gap. I think there are some things they were giving some guidance around, some federal options, grants, looking at the scope of the project. But we have to be realistic that they need more funding.
Great question.
I can yell.
Corey, can you? Okay.
And I feel like you could not have set me up for my question. So, really quick, the $40 million to solve food, for how long? Like, would that last?
That would be the annual cost.
The annual
In terms of,
cost?
that's what the gap is when we look at the shortage of food with the need.
Okay.
It would be $40 million. So that's why we're advocating in terms for a livable wage.
Right.
Because if you earn a livable wage, then you could afford in terms of the food that you need. But that is the amount in terms of what we would need to be able to address it.
Annually, okay. So, the reality that there's this funding gap, we see at the federal level, the state level, and the local level, so much enthusiasm to invest in infrastructure projects, tourism projects. We finance it off of a hope and a prayer that in the future we might get tax revenue that could cover the cost. But we know for a fact that feeding our community does not just directly correlate to economic growth and stability and decreased public safety costs. It is a causation, there's a direct causation. So why are we not seeing our leaders as enthusiastic to invest the same way in feeding our community like we are in building the Young Center? When we know we will reap the returns.
Awesome question. And I'm so excited. I wish we had a lot more time because I could really go off into this. I think all of us on this panel, when we heard your question, we all got excited because you're hitting the nail right on the head. But in the short of it, it is the political will to make the investment, and we have not had it. That's what makes the difference. It is that the folks that we put in office have the ability to be able to make direct impact, but they have to have the political will to make the policy changes that impact people's lives. To give you an example, during the pandemic, all Americans received, those who were eligible, received additional funding and support through child tax credits, also through SNAP benefits was increased, and we saw less people than we would have anticipated because there were resources going to these families and other resources going to the families that were in need that helped decrease the gap that existed. A year ago, Kentucky elected to forego $54 million in revenue coming in because they decided to end the benefits a year earlier than what just recently happened. And when that happened, when they started decreasing, particularly with the tax credits, when they started reducing the SNAP benefits back to pre-pandemic, then now we're seeing more people in line that we've never seen before. And so when you talk about an opportunity, it is to have the political will to say, we're going to solve this problem and then put the resources behind it, because that's the long term, the long game that we need to look at. The short term, in terms of what we need to understand, is that yes, it's going to cost. And yes, there's a price to be paid, but you're going to pay for it one way or another. We have to decide as a country, as a people, how we want to disperse our resources and how we want to take care of it and take care of our people. We realized, I can't tell you how many questions I got when I was in government of people asking, how did the government get all of this funding to be able to do this kind of work during the pandemic when they had all of the American Rescue, but all of those dollars that were being dispersed? Louisville received $388 million, a lifetime investment that we had in our community. Other communities across the country received that from the federal government. It's our tax dollars. We have opportunities to be able to make a difference. And not only can we have an opportunity to receive the funds, but we got to be smart about where we make those investments. And that's where we were not smart enough in many instances this recent time. But I believe that as we think about what we're doing and how we have an opportunity to be able to make the change, then we can do that, and we can collectively have that impact that we want to see, that we much deserve as citizens of these United States, or what I would consider, Nina Simone said, is yet to be United States of America, because we have yet to see the true dream of us being equal, and having an opportunity to have access to everything that we need. So we are an idea, a dream that is still working to perfect itself. As we think about this great republic that we have an opportunity now to make a difference. And that is through education. It is through forums like this, that where we just don't come and sit, but we lead and take action. And so I want to encourage each and every one of you to not just take this information in, but leave with a commitment that you want to make a difference. And we've shared with you how you can make a difference in our organizations. And when you help one, you help all of us. So I would be the first to say, help the whole of us. I would be the first to say, help New Roots. Because when you help New Roots, you help Dare to Care. Because we're working together in community. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to solve these challenges.
Can I get like 2 minutes? Because I know. Okay, yeah, 2 minutes. And I can address this after, because this is a longer conversation, right? And I love, I kind of like want to always, when I come to these things, I want to like always stay just in friendship. But to really address your question, what it is that our city is very segregated, and we don't really want to talk about it. And all you gotta do is just drive around and see whose name is on some of these major parks, on these buildings, right? And on these institutions, right? We can go around all day, and I can probably call 4 names. I'm like, man, I always see that name. And when you look at that, when you look at those kind of things, then you will begin to see who controls your city, who makes decisions on your city. And we keep talking about equity, Vincent James talking about, everybody up here is talking about equity, right? I learned equity in the house of my mom. I didn't think my sister got enough punishment, right? I was like, why she don't have to? But her mom said, y'all kind of two different people. I can do, what I got to do to you, I don't got to do to her. You're a little hard-headed. She's not, right? And so I think when we talk about equity, we really have to address who really owns all the resources, not I, right? So a lot of people in here, so who owns the resources, right? And then when we get those resources, what do? You do talk about Louisville as one big city, but then it's 81 cities within the city, which our funding got distributed to the other 81 cities. Why are we not having conversations with the city of St. Matthews? Everybody got mad when they built Topgolf, right? Yeah, y'all know what I'm saying, right? Who are we having? Why are we not having conversations about what comes here? Why are we not holding our Metro Council members responsible? Because they hold a lot of power. How are they distributing the dollars, and then how are they holding up the distribution of those dollars, right? Because let's tell the truth. Do we want our streets full again? We didn't like when people was in the streets. Everybody kept blaming the protesters. Oh my gosh, they destroyed downtown. No, the government destroyed downtown. Right? Because there are resources, the people who were down there were starved of resources, right? So we have to look at those dollars. When you trace the dollars, right, you will find exactly who the decision makers are. And a lot of times, the people with the titles are not the decision makers. It's the people with the money. Follow the dollars, and then ask those people the questions, right? That's what we have to do. We have to create equitable systems, right? And I'm done because I'm trying to keep it cool. But that's what I'm saying. Like we have to really create equitable systems. I was over across the way. I was like, oh my gosh, look at this family gym. What would happen in Parkland or Shawnee if we invested however many millions of dollars and everybody talks about the track is good, right? But that's still a Russell neighborhood, right? And too often, money jumps on the bandwagon, right? We created a safe outdoor space called Old Village. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, I hate this. I don't want this in the neighborhood. A year later, now everybody's on the bandwagon. Oh, I love homelessness. Let's invest in the community care campus. I love the idea, but it's too much bandwagon. People, that's not equity, right? If you don't understand it, don't create a stop sign. Yield, but work with people to create real equitable solutions, right? And I'm done. That's my use speech.
Well, and it takes vision to accomplish all of that. Thank you all for your leadership and the vision that you shared with us tonight. Hopefully we'll take it out into the community and disperse it even more. Speaking of, there's an opportunity for you to help support the agency we're here with tonight, JFCS. We can use dollars, we can use volunteers, we can use food.
Right.
And there's a food drive coming up for Passover. Passover is a celebration of the deliverance of people who have been enslaved in Egypt, who had been deprived of resources, and who had an opportunity to seek a land of milk and honey and abundance. And so hopefully we can bring that out to our community here. So thank you all for coming tonight. And don't let this be the end of the discussion.